Most rocks with gold inside look like nothing at all. I was standing in ankle-deep water, maybe 8 inches, on a creek in the foothills a few springs back. And there was a rock the size of a grapefruit sitting on the bar right in front of my boot. Ugly thing. Rust brown, pitted, dull. I had walked past that same bar 4 or 5 times that season, and I only picked it up because I had already given up on the pan and was killing time before the drive home. That rock is why this video exists. Here's the part that stings. You have almost certainly done the same thing. You have bent down, looked at a plain, stained, chewed-up rock and put it back. Not because you were careless, because everybody in this hobby is taught to look for shine, and shine is the one thing gold-bearing rock usually does not have. Gold is not rare in this country. Reading the ground is rare. That is the whole gap. So today I am giving you the 5 signs that tell you a rock has gold in it, before you crack it, before you crush it, before you spend a dime. What each one looks like in your hand, why it forms, exactly where on the creek to hunt for it, and the field checks you can run with nothing but your fingers and daylight. The 5th sign is the one that has cost men more gold than the other 4 put together, and most of them threw it on the waste pile with their own hands. I want to hear how many rocks you've thrown back this year. Before the list, you need the plumbing, because once you understand it, the 5 signs stop being a list to memorize and become one story you can read. Gold does not grow in rock, it arrives. Deep down, hot water under pressure moves through cracks in the crust, and that water carries dissolved silica, dissolved metals, and sulfur. When that fluid rises and the pressure drops, it dumps its load. Silica becomes quartz. The metals become sulfides, mostly iron sulfide, and gold rides along with them, usually a speck's too small to see. That is the vein. That is all a vein is, a healed crack that something rich passed through. Then the mountain comes up, the rain gets in, and everything changes. Quartz survives almost anything. The sulfides do not. Rain and oxygen rot iron sulfide the same way they rot a fender, and it bleeds out as rust and leaves holes behind. Gold, meanwhile, does not care. It sits there. So when you are standing on a bar looking at rocks, you are not hunting for gold. You are hunting for the fingerprints of that plumbing, rust where sulfide used to be, weight where heavy minerals still are. Holes shaped like crystals, bands where the crack opened and healed over and over, and the dirty margin where the vein met the country rock. One thing will try to fool you the whole way through, and it fools nearly everybody at least once. Chalcopyrite, copper iron sulfide. It is brassier and yellower than plain pyrite, softer, and it very often carries an oily rainbow film on the surface, blues and purples like gasoline on a puddle. In the right light, it looks like a smear of raw gold sitting in the rock. I will show you how to kill it in 5 seconds without taking anything out of your pocket, and I will bring it back up twice more because it turns up on exactly the ground where these 5 signs live. The first sign is iron staining, and I mean real staining, not a light tan wash on the outside of a creek cobble. What you want is a rock that looks like it is bleeding. Orange, mustard yellow, brick red, chocolate brown, sometimes a purple black so dark it reads as burnt. The stain comes out of the cracks and runs down the face. On a broken piece it soaks in, it does not sit on top. That is the test that matters. A water-rolled cobble picks up a thin, tan skin from sitting in an iron-rich creek, and that skin is nothing. Split the rock or find a face that is already broken, and look at how deep the color goes. If the rust penetrates 1/4 of an inch or more, about the depth of a pencil eraser, something inside that rock rotted out to make it. The mechanism is simple. Iron sulfide is the taxi that gold most often rides in. When the sulfide weathers, the sulfur leaves and the iron stays behind as oxide, painting everything around it. Miners have called that rusty cap a gossan for 200 years, and old USGS bulletins are full of it, because a gossan is a signpost pointing down at a sulfide body that has not weathered yet. When I read those old bulletins, the word shows up over and over in descriptions of ground that later produced. Go looking for it where fresh rock is being exposed rather than where rock has been rolling for 1,000 years. The cut bank after a slide. The first 50 feet of creek below where a bank has caved. Root balls of trees that went over in a storm. Look at road cuts on the way in. Look at the underside of the boulders on the bar because the top is bleached by sun and the bottom is not. The mistake is the pretty pocket. 9 men out of 10 come off a creek with a bag of clean white quartz because it is the loudest rock in the wash, and they leave the rusty, broken junk right where it lay. Clean white bull quartz is barren far more often than not. Ugly pays. And here's where I have to be straight with you because this sign has a hard limit. In country where the whole soil is iron-rich, red desert ground, ironstone caps, laterite in the southeast, everything is stained and the sign tells you nothing. Same in glacial till up north, where the rock in front of you was carried in from 300 miles away and its stain has no relationship to the hill behind you. In that ground, I stop reading color and start reading the next 4 signs instead, especially weight and crystal casts because those travel with the rock and the stain does not. The second sign is about on its weight, and it is the fastest read in this entire video. Pick up 2 rocks of about the same size, 1 in each hand, and just hold them. Do not think about it. Your hands are better at this than you believe. Plain quartz has a specific gravity of about 2.65, which means it is a bit over 2.5 times heavier than water. Iron sulfide is roughly double that. Gold itself is 19.3, but you almost never have enough gold in a hand sample to move the needle. What moves the needle is the sulfide load and the iron oxide that replaced it. Numbers you can use. A fist-sized chunk of clean quartz about the size of a baseball runs somewhere a bit under 2 pounds. The same piece loaded with sulfide or heavily iron-replaced can come in noticeably heavier, and heavier is a thing you feel instantly the second you have something to compare it against. That comparison is the whole trick. Alone, a rock feels like a rock. Side by side, the heavy one announces itself. I keep a piece of plain barren quartz in the truck for exactly this. Same reason a carpenter keeps a square. My wife thinks it is the single most useless object in the garage, and she is not entirely wrong, but it has saved me from hauling out a 5-gallon bucket of rock, roughly 70 pounds, that would have paid me nothing. 2.65 against 19.3. That gap is the entire reason a gold pan works, and it is the same gap working in your palms. Where this pays best is float. Float is broken vein material that has come downhill and has not made it to the water yet. Walk the slope above the creek, 4 feet above the summer water line, about chest height on you, and then keep going up. Sample the heavy ones. Follow them uphill and the pieces get bigger and sharper as you close on the source. The beginner mistake is trusting a single rock, and the second mistake is testing wet against dry. A soaked rock feels heavier than a dry one, and it will fool you every time. Compare wet to wet, dry to dry, and use 2 hands. Quick pause here. Everything I just walked through, and dozens more tricks like it, is inside the Gold Prospector's Bible. 2026 edition, 50 field-tested tricks to stop getting skunked. Right now it comes with the 30-day skunk-proof roadmap completely free, a step-by-step 4-week plan to pick your ground, test smarter, and finally get your first real color in the pan. Link in the description, QR code on screen. This is the season you stop guessing where the gold is. So what actually happens to a cube of iron sulfide when the rain finally reaches it? It rots out and leaves the hole behind, and the hole keeps the shape. That is the third sign, and it is the one that separates a man who found a vein from a man who found a rock. Turn the piece so the light rakes across the surface at a low angle and look for little square pits. Tiny cubes, from pinhead size up to about 1/4 inch across, roughly the size of a pencil eraser end. Some will be perfect squares, some will be rectangles, most will be lined with rust, and some will have a delicate rusty honeycomb across the opening, thin walls of iron oxide standing where the crystal used to be. Old miners called that lacework boxwork, and it is about as good a sign as this hobby offers. Why it matters more than plain staining is that a stain only tells you iron was here. A cubic cast tells you iron sulfide was here, in crystal form, growing in that quartz, which means the fluid that made the rock was carrying sulfur and metals. That is the exact fluid that carries gold. Look for it on the fresh, broken faces of angular rock on the slope. not on the rounded stuff in the water, because 100 years of tumbling grinds the boxwork off. Break your samples if you have a hammer with you. If you do not, look at the shadowed side and tilt the rock through the light slowly, 10 seconds a face. Rake light finds pits that flat light hides completely. Now the chalcopyrite. Sometimes those pits are not empty. Sometimes there is still bright brassy metal down in them and your heart jumps. And 9 times out of 10 it is copper iron sulfide with that oily rainbow film on it. The check takes 5 seconds and needs nothing but your body. Turn away from the sun and cup the rock in the shade of your own shoulder. Chalcopyrite goes dull, greenish, gray, dead. Gold does not change at all. Gold is exactly as yellow in shade as it is in full sun. Then put a thumbnail on it and press. Chalcopyrite is brittle and grits under pressure. Gold flattens and takes the print. That is it. Shade, then press. The mistake here is scrubbing your samples in the creek before you look at them. Mud packs into the pits and every cast disappears. Look at the rock dirty first, then clean it. Look, I'll be straight with you. The 50 field-tested tricks in the book are laid out across 5 chapters, and it comes with a printable 10-minute streamside checklist you can fold into a pocket so you are not standing on the bar trying to remember any of this. The 30-day roadmap is still bundled in free, and I honestly don't know how long that gift stays in there. If you've been watching these videos thinking this could finally be your season, that's the move. Link in the description below, QR code on screen. Make this the year you find your first real color. The 4th sign is ribbon quartz, and this is the one that made me change how I hunt. Most men picture a quartz vein as a clean white slab. The ones that produce usually are not. Look at a broken cross-section, the edge rather than the face, and what you want is banding. Thin, dark lines running parallel through the quartz, sometimes 1/8 of an inch apart, about the thickness of 2 stacked dimes, sometimes wider. The quartz between the lines often reads gray or blue-gray rather than white, and it can look slightly sugary instead of glassy. The dark lines themselves are seams of wall rock, sulfide, and mineral dust that got trapped. Each one of those lines is a separate event. The fault moved, the crack opened, hot fluid rushed in and sealed it, and later the fault moved again and did it all over. 50 lines means 50 pulses of mineralizing fluid through that same crack. Gold arrives in pulses. More pulses, more chances. That is why the ribbon rock at places like Grass Valley in California, steep pine-covered ridges over some of the deepest quartz mining in the country, was the stuff the crews watched for underground. I will tell you plainly what I do not know. I do not know why gray quartz runs better than white quartz. People will tell you it is fine sulfide dust or trapped fluid, and maybe that is exactly it. But I have never seen it nailed down in a way that satisfied me. What I know is what came out of the crusher. On the ground I have worked, the gray ribbon stuff has paid, and the milk white stuff has not, and my notebook says that in about 9 seasons of entries. While we are here, I am going to disagree with the common advice out loud. The hobby tells you to hunt for visible gold in quartz. I think that is backwards. Visible gold in a hand sample is the exception, not the rule. And if you make it your standard, you will throw away 9 good rocks for every one you keep. Read the structure of the rock and let the gold be invisible. Where you apply it is downstream of a crossing. If a vein crosses the creek anywhere above you, ribbon float shows up on the bars below it, and it is angular, not rounded, because it has not traveled far. Find one piece, then walk upstream 50 yards at a time and see if you find another. When they stop, you just pass the source. The mistake is looking at the polished face and never turning the rock. Bands live on the edge. Always look at the edge. There is a story here that belongs to this exact idea. In 1886, a man named George Harrison was on a farm called Langlagt in the Transvaal in South Africa, and he found gold in a gray outcrop full of rounded pebbles. The rock looked like hardened gravel, like old concrete. Not a quartz vein, not a shiny thing, nothing that matches anybody's picture of gold country. He registered his claim, and then he reportedly sold it for 10 pounds and walked off, and nobody knows for certain what became of him. That gray pebbly rock was the edge of the Witwatersrand. That single gold field has produced something on the order of a third of all the gold ever taken out of the earth by human beings. A third. From a rock that looked like a lump of old driveway. I bring it up because Harrison read the rock right and the price wrong, and every single person who walked over that same outcrop before him read the rock wrong. They were looking for shine. The sign was texture and weight and setting, and it was sitting on the surface in daylight, and that is precisely what the 5 things in this video are about. Now, about the edge of that ribbon rock, because the edge is where I made the most expensive mistake of my prospecting life. The 5th sign is not in the quartz. It is at the boundary where the vein meets the rock it cut through. Look at a piece of float and find the flat, dirty face, the one with a dark seam on it. Maybe a thin clay or graphite smear, maybe a soft, crumbly, greenish or bleached band of country rock still stuck to the quartz. It often looks like the rock is dirty and needs cleaning. It looks like the worthless side. Sometimes it is only ½ inch to 2 inches thick, roughly a finger's width, and it is frequently softer than everything around it. That contact is where the fluid pressure changed most sharply, where the chemistry of the vein fluid ran headlong into a completely different rock. And it is where gold very often drops in the highest concentration. On a lot of veins, the middle is clean, barren quartz, and the last inch against the wall is the whole paycheck. The bleached or greenish look in that wall rock is alteration, meaning the hot fluid chemically cooked the host rock next to the crack. Alteration is proof the fluid was there in volume, not just as a trickle. So here's what it cost me. For 3 seasons on a piece of ground I had permission to sample, I broke float with a hammer, kept the clean quartz cores because they were prettier and easier to crush, and tossed the dirty edges into a pile at the base of the slope. 3 seasons. Gas money I do not want to add up. Probably $400 in fuel alone across those trips, plus a winter of crushing barren rock in the garage. The man who taught me to read a bank came out with me one afternoon, watched me do it twice, picked a piece out of my discard pile, and told me I had been throwing away the vein and keeping the packaging. He was right. What you do instead is keep the whole piece. When you break float, keep every fragment that has a flat, dark face on it. And when you sample an outcrop, take your material 2 inches into the wall rock on both sides of the vein rather than out of the center. Crush the dirty stuff first. If the seam is soft enough to gouge with a thumbnail, that is even better, because soft usually means altered. And this is where the chalcopyrite shows up for the last time, because altered contacts are exactly where you find it, sitting in the seam in bright brassy grains, doing its best impression, shade first, thumbnail second. First, if it dies in the shade and grits under your nail, put it down and keep going. If it stays yellow in shadow and takes the print of your nail, stop, sit down, and mark the spot in your notebook. That 5-pound rock I mentioned, the one in the garage my wife has asked me to move roughly 11 times, is a piece of contact material. Rusty, banded, with a dark greasy seam down one flat side. It is not a museum piece, it is a reminder of the pile I left at the bottom of that slope. I want to know which of these 5 you have held. So take stock of where you are now compared to 20 minutes ago. You can look at a broken face and tell soaked in rust from a surface skin. You can weigh 2 rocks against each other and feel the sulfide load. You can rake light across a sample and read cubic casts and rusty boxwork left by crystals that rotted out 1,000,000 years ago. You can turn a piece on its edge and count fluid pulses in the banding. And you can spot the dirty margin most men throw on the tailings pile. 5 signs, none of which require the rock to shine, and all of which you can run standing in a creek with wet hands and no tools. None of it makes you rich on Saturday. What it does is stop you handing back the good ones. Over a season, that difference is enormous, and it is the difference between men who find gold and men who log another skunked trip in the notebook. If you would rather not be the guy who steps over a lifetime, find and keeps walking, stick with this channel, because that's the only thing I'm trying to fix here. Next time out, I want to get into what happens to that float once it hits the water, and why the spot where a vein crosses a creek is almost never where the gold piles up. Get out there this weekend and pick up the ugly ones. Good luck out there, gold hunter.